Sonic Robin Hood accidentally got rebooted twice. I guarantee you that's not the weirdest trivia you've heard in Sonic's 35 years of history, but it's my favourite. This is the tragic ballad of Bo Sparrow and Thorn the Lop. Our story begins with one man, a man whose name is spoken in hushed tones by all who delve too deep into Sonic lore. I'm not doing a bit, it actually is Ken Pender's. Now, there are plenty of other great videos on this subject if you want the full story, but here's the cliff notes for context. Penders was a freelance writer for the Archie Sonic comic, who, when he left, claimed legal ownership of all the characters he created. Archie sued him but couldn't find his work for hire contracts, forcing a settlement. Penders would allow Archie to use his characters, provided he got royalties and full creative control over his favourites. To avoid this headache, Archie figured it was safest to never use those characters ever again. But Penders made a lot of characters, most of them integral to the Archie Sonic story. What was Archie's solution? Make the entire multiverse collapse in on itself, actual comic dialogue, and reboot it from a clean slate, free of all characters Sega didn't own. There was just one problem. The planned reboot was months away, and they'd already greenlit a story starring one of them. This is Rob o' the Hedge. He's literally Hedgehog Robin Hood. He fights Eggman's forces in Sonic Britain, Mercia, alongside his wife Mary Ann, really, and Friar Buck, really. Oh, he's also Amy's cousin, but that's somehow the least relevant detail here. You see how deep in the lore the Penders characters are? This is Sonic Universe issue 46. A Team Chaotix story where they travel to Mercia in search of Mighty the Armadillo's sister. Yes, Mighty has a sister in the Archie comic. As these unfortunately named robots bear down on them, the Chaotix are saved by the arrows of... well, this was supposed to be Rob. The comic was already plotted, written, and partially inked, so how could Archie get it out without risking the wrath of Penders? This is Bo Sparrow. He's literally Sparrow Robin Hood. He fights Eggman's forces in Mercia, alongside his maybe wife Thorn the Lop, and Friar Buck. He's not a hedgehog, he is not Amy's cousin, and was not created by Ken Penders. But wearing a hood, a hedgehog and a sparrow look about the same, so all they needed to do was literally draw him on top of the old character. He's the man who wasn't supposed to exist, and yet he does. Bo was designed by Tracy Yardley, who currently works on IDW. Fun fact, he was supposed to be a literal Robin, but Archie editor Mike Pellerito felt that was too much, so he got recolored, meaning this comic's main hero got redesigned twice. Now let's meet its heroine. Well, calling her that's a bit of a stretch, she sadly doesn't get much screen time. The important part is, she's a lop-eared rabbit. Why? Because she had to be literally traced over Mary Ann the Echidna, and rabbit ears kind of line up with Echidna dreadlocks if you squint. Her spear is also a stand-in for Mary Ann's staff. She was designed by Aaliyah Baker, Ian Flynn's wife coincidentally, with Tracy Yardley finalising it. But as we read further into this issue, things get interesting. Rob o' the Hedge still exists. He's in hiding with his wife and child, and Bo fears the worst. Oh, how right he was. You might notice they're dancing around actually naming the Penders characters, except later they do explicitly say Rob. They're also allowed to show his dad. This confused me until I looked up the wikis. Turns out, while Rob was a long-running Penders character, this issue is his dad's first appearance. He doesn't get a name, and exists entirely for Mighty's tragic backstory, but this technically means he was created not by Penders, but by the writer of this story, Ian Flynn. Why is this important? When Ian Flynn started working for Archie, they made sure to have their contracts sorted this time. Any character he makes is owned by Sega. So the other two Robin Hood XBs, Alan Quayle and Munchrat, a miller's son, are also safe, as they're new to this issue. The end of issue commentary also lists Friar Buck as a new character, and this is only half true. He appeared in 4 earlier issues of the comic and was technically created by Ken Penders. But I combed through all 4 of these issues and discovered he never spoke a single line of dialogue, and was only directly named once. In other words, he wasn't really a character before now, which I guess makes him a legal loophole within a legal loophole. The rest of this issue involves preparing for and beginning a rescue mission in the dungeon of Lord Mordred Hood, also a Flynn character, so he's fine. Another fun fact about this issue, even the off-panel had to be changed. These are short, one-strip gags, based on that issue's subject matter. The issue's final off-panel always felt like a weak joke to me, so it being a last-minute replacement explains a lot. The artist for the off-panels, Jonathan Gray, released a sketch of the original plan on his DeviantArt. It would have featured Vector mistaking Rob for another green Archie hedgehog, Sonic's evil counterpart Scourge, and attacking him. But I'd like to draw attention to the fascinating end-of-issue commentary, where we get concept art for Bo and Thorn, and a note that, for all you clue seekers out there, Bo looks like a dashing rogue of sorts, implying he was going to be related to the Babylon Rogues. Now, this plot thread never went anywhere, and Ian Flynn said on Bumblecast, the August 17th, 2022 one, at 50 minutes and 45 seconds to be specific, that he doesn't remember any plans. I'm just amazed that Bo's lore goes even deeper. I'm also amazed that this issue ran alongside the infamous Endangered Species arc. You know, the one that was hastily rewritten to yeet all of Pender's echidnas, including Knuckles' entire extended family, out of existence. That explains so much. That's it for 46, but as we begin 47, I'd like to draw your attention to the intro. It's the same line most Archie issues begin with, except instead of "Welcome to the planet Mobius," it says, "Welcome to Sonic's comic book adventures." Even before the reboot, they were distancing themselves from anything non-Sega, which was a lot easier to do after they scrapped this already completed cover. Hi Rob. Pending licensor approval, boy I'll say. Perhaps in response to said licenses, issue 47 gets even more cavalier. Bo is now referred to as the leader of the Mercian freedom fighters, and while Rob is still alluded to, he's never named in this issue. Apparently he and his wife and child, can't say their names either, fled to Never Lake, and Bo hoped that when the tyrants are defeated, they could return. Man, it'd really suck if a wave of chaos energy wrote them out of reality before that could happen, huh? But by this issue, it's clear this isn't their story anymore, it's Bo and Thorn's, and so they begin to get actual characterization. Lord Hood gets some neat banter with Rob that implies they have a history. And Thorn is now Scottish.
This is the culmination of years of training. What?
It's hilarious how sudden this is. Her dialogue in 46 never implied she had an accent. Now she's written with one and is titled Highlander Lass. As iffy as it is to treat is Scottish as a character trait, issue 46's Thorn never showed much personality beyond liking drinks and finding singing mildly annoying. We don't even know what her relationship with Rob is. Their body language and being traced over characters who were a couple implies they are too, but they never had a chance to explore this. So this is at least an improvement, I guess? Ultimately, the heroes save the prisoners, but Lord Hood is still at large. Side note, I love how an issue so mired in legal issues had the guts to put in an unlicensed Animaniacs cameo. The Chaotix get their info on Mighty and move on, and the Woodsmen go home to celebrate their victory. And that was the last thing they ever did. But their story doesn't quite end there. Lord Hood, being a Flynn character, was brought back in the reboot, and mentions Bo by name. A new version of Bo was out there, presumably with Thorn and his woodland kingsman by his side, preparing for his big comeback. And then the entire Archie line got cancelled. 2 issues of Archie's side comic, barely pre-reboot, and 1 name drop post-reboot. That's all Bo and Thorn have to their name. But that's still an accomplishment for characters who were never meant to be. They might not be the most memorable thing in Archie Sonic, but the sheer weirdness that led to their existence immortalizes them in my heart. They are literally legally distinct characters of legally distinct characters. And who knows, Sega does own them. Maybe one day, we will see them again. Until then, here's to Bo Sparrow and Thorn the Lop, my favourite obscure Sonic characters.